Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back to movies. So today I want to talk about the Odyssey. I don't necessarily want to talk about the story as much as I want to talk about the cinema. One of the more popular versions of this story is Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? At least that was it for me. And seeing how the Coen brothers structured this story was very interesting compared to how Christopher Nolan, and in my head I had it that this is the definitive edition of the Odyssey. And that's how I had it in my head. Like, this is going to be as period accurate as possible. This is going to be the true, the honest, the raw. And right at the beginning, very clearly, that's not what happens. And I'm happy for that. I'm grateful that it was not that, because because it's 2026 and audiences are used to a different kind of cinema. Christopher Nolan is very good at making boring stuff happen in a very kinetic way. But this movie has a lot of very interesting things visually in it that I was interested in seeing how he took care of. I think one of the things that's cheeky about it is so Chris Nolan. The way characters are framed, the way they're composed, the way they're introduced, the costumes and the music and the effects, all of that just scream Chris Nolan in a way that I'm glad it wasn't period accurate. I'm glad there weren't like a bunch of people that were like, this actually looks exactly what they look like. I don't want that. When they ride up and they got the all white armor, I was like, okay. Let's go. This is sick. This is mythology. Give me some new mythology. Give me some like what things could have looked like to the eyes of these people after hearing a story thousands of times over. This is how we've interpreted this story. So it has all the prestige, it has all this ambition, it has all of this grandeur. But the one thing I will say is that it lacked, I guess, like, I'm trying to say the word whimsy without it feeling like a flute is playing. Like, that's not what I mean by whimsy. There's specifically like two sections that I consider whimsical. The Hades section, which I want to talk about later, and then the men eating section. Those parts were the two most whimsical parts, and I wanted more of that. Because we lacked that, it felt like we were jumping from fantasy back to period drama, back to fantasy, back to period drama. Like, if it was all just Lord of the Rings, it would have made sense. But it kind of felt like it was going from Lord of the Rings to like, I don't know. But if it was like all 300, which I'm glad it wasn't, by the way. But the thing that 300 has is its consistency. Here, Nolan has to make his own consistency. And I think that's where it can get a little jarring. So cinematically, this was well acted, well shot, well directed. Pacing is pretty good. Sequences are pretty awesome. All the actors were great. But you could tell it wasn't his story, you know? I don't think he landed it as much as he landed a story like Oppenheimer. 4 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd for me. It's creme de la creme cinema, and I don't think that anybody does it any better blockbuster wise than Christopher Nolan. I think he respects everybody. He respects the audience the most. That kind of stuff matters to me when I go to the movies and give the studios my money. Is this ambitious? Is this telling a cool story? Is this going to pander to us? Is this going to waste our time? Is this going to be slop? We can trust Chris Nolan is not that kind of director. And there are very few directors that are like that, but they put their career on it and they ask you to trust them. And every time they deliver, you trust them more and more with their next project. Christopher Nolan was one of those. I would recommend seeing this. Let's get to spoilers. Spoilers. The casting was at times a huge hit and at times didn't really hit as much. And I think there was a lot of conversation about Lupita Nyong'o and Elliot Page. And for my money, they nailed it. They nailed it. Anytime they showed up, they were saying something, they were doing something. It was super interesting. And it was a curveball to both the story and the like mythos of the story. I definitely appreciated because it was unexpected in a way that felt refreshing. I usually like Bernthal. I felt like he probably wasn't as menacing as we needed him to be, because like Helen is essentially a captured wife in this story, and she has been taken.
It's 1 p.m. It's time for lunch. Remember to wash your hands.
It's time for lunch. Like, of course, in my head, like, yeah, of course, the women of this world were taken. They were beaten. Other stuff that I don't want to get demonetized for. These men thought that the world revolved around them and treated them as way. Do you think Agamemnon's brother wasn't stepping off to the side? Of course he was. And so seeing Helen's representation of that was a good reminder that like these men were fighting wars for themselves and they were making up stories about themselves. And Lupita Nyong'o played Agamemnon's wife, who's just her twin sister. Good job with that. Such a good reminder that like the things you think you're doing for glory are actually creating an entire generation of widows and orphans because you want to prove your glory. And in that, there's a vacuum. And in that vacuum, your wife becomes resentful. She begins plotting on your return. She lures you to sleep. And then Agamemnon is killed. The way they presented Agamemnon, every time he was on screen, it was impressive. Physically, cinematically, they always shot him in a great way when the doors open and he's just like, brilliant cinema stuff, like in terms of like mythology. Up until he spoke, I feel like they presented him. I'm glad that he didn't have this like Xerxes 300 voice. You know, he had like a very small, soft voice. Not at all what I was expecting. I was expecting it to be like, Odysseus. Yes, you know. Elliot Page as Sinon for me was the performance of the movie. Part of the story revolves around his sacrifice, his brother chickening out, him being the one that Odysseus lied to, him being killed as part of that, and then him being the one that is resurrected and drank that blood and then started talking that shit, delivering this message to Odysseus. The whole sequence just covered in black. He's got like blood running down his mouth. It looks awesome. I was the most electrified I had ever been about being like, you lied to me. Odysseus was not to be trusted, not to be believed, not a great leader. Like his men mutinied him. He lost a lot of men. He lied to a lot of people. Here is Sinon confronting him that you lied to me. I would have taken that arrow. I didn't need to be lied to. I didn't need to come to the underworld to be told I died as a fool. Page really eats up the whole thing. I loved it. That was a very fascinating sequence. That was my favorite sequence of the movie. If I could watch it again, I'd watch it again just for that sequence. And this is what I was talking about with the jarringness of the Hades sequence. And then we go back to Robert Pattinson. I think Robert Pattinson's really good. I kind of wish he's a good little, stinker. I don't know. I don't have my recasting couch thing on, but I would have liked somebody just a little bit more awkward. In the movie, he's not all that bad. Like he prevents Odysseus' son from being murdered. He's a good looking dude. What's the issue here? You went to war. Sure, he's like duplicitous, but like that's what the whole movie is. All of these men are duplicitous. I need something more. I need something a little bit more rotten. I liked Anne Hathaway as Penelope. I felt like she was a good matriarch. I don't know if I remember this in any of the tellings that I had, but they kept calling it an empty throne, empty throne, empty throne. And at the end, she was like, empty throne. I sat on the throne for 20 years. I held this place together for 20 years. I kept these men at bay for 20 years. Like, ain't no empty throne. I'm on the throne. And in that way, I wish I had more moments where she could show that command. Like, I kind of wish she like smacked them around a little bit and like wielded her power. I know I'm talking about story, but like I'm still kind of working through a lot of this. A lot happened in the movie and a lot of things I liked. I'm still very conflicted about this story, and the execution of it. The siren sequence was so cool, and that's one of those fun things that he likes to do to like incorporate you into it. All of a sudden you hear everything and then it just goes zoom. And now you're in the character's perspective. One of the biggest things I did want to talk about cinema-wise is the American accent. I went to watch it with my buddy Chris. He was really taken out of the movie by the American accents. Because he was also like, I don't want them to be speaking in like whatever, ancient Greek either. It is something you notice straight off the bat. It's also like an obvious choice. We have multiple British actors. We have a British director. Usually when we get stories like this, they got the British accents. They got American actors doing the British accents like in Troy. But here, Nolan flips that. We got British director, British actors. They're putting on an American accent. Why? I think because this is an American and a blockbuster, and like through like an American dialect sentiment. But the second thing is that I think he's trying to bring a old story, folklore. He's trying to bring that to us. This feels like a contemporary story in terms of the way they speak. It felt like the communication was really easy to understand, and in that way, it sort of felt like Matt Damon was playing Matt Damon, you know? Like, he didn't feel that much different than like maybe the way Jason Bourne would have talked, maybe the way like Dr. Mann would have spoken. And to me, it helped me connect to it, because now all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm hearing a Chris Nolan movie. I'm hearing the pattern. This question leads to this scene. This leads to that reveal. And to me, it helped it connect with me. For my buddy Chris, totally took him out of the movie. So your mileage may vary on that, but I loved it. I mean, I gotta admit it, I loved it. I don't know about I'm not sure what he means by any of this. I mean, you can tell that he has meaning. He really likes to have like a something said here have something repeated at the end. That's a big Nolan staple. There's a lot of stuff about Zeus's law, welcoming in the stranger, honor, but then there's the flip side of that, where honor leads to your death. Sacrifice leaves people in its wake. It was not an honorable thing to have sacked Troy. It was not an honorable thing to have stolen Helen. It was not an honorable thing to have sacrificed your firstborn. It did not bring peace. It spun that world into chaos. Nolan's using this great story to say this is actually a tragedy. Everyone who did this is now dead because of the harsh world they left behind. And instead of enjoying time with their family, they went to conquer more, and they went to destroy more families, and they went to spill more blood. And when they arrived, they reaped what they sowed. And I think the sequence with Agamemnon was very important for that very reason of being like, oh, you thought this hero was great? His wife hated him and killed him. Oh, you thought that like this guy taking a bullet for you to sell your lie was great? Well, look at him now. You got to look at that person in the eye. Another thing is that we saw it on a regular screen, and you could really tell the IMAX of it all. Like, I could tell there was stuff missing here and there. I didn't mind it, but like I was also like, damn. For me, I would have preferred to have seen it in IMAX. I couldn't. I wish there was an option where you're like, oh, you can watch this, or you can watch it in the IMAX ratio. And I would have preferred the IMAX ratio, because you could tell everything was framed for a shot composed this way. But I wanted the parts that they intended, that they intended. Final thoughts would be that I didn't think this was a particularly interesting story. It ended up being a pretty lean meal, but all of the flourishes on it were fantastic. Really regular characters presented in a very interesting way. I loved the politics of both on the ship and off the ship, the dead and the undead, pre and post. So I really had a great time with it. It felt enormous. You felt both the grandness of it and the intimacy of it. There is something about seeing a Christopher Nolan movie in a cinema that is like emotionally resonating. It always has been like that for me, and I continue to look forward to that. So I would recommend going to watch this movie. If I can just talk a little bit about the right-wing propaganda machine on this, I would say that I feel bad. I feel bad for them. Like, to go into a movie with so much negative baggage, with hate in your heart for people who don't look like you, who don't have your shared experience. I mean, for God's sakes, every main powerful character in this movie is a white dude, and they needed to be more white dudes. They needed to be more white women. And I think this film did a really good job of being like, these are actually what your heroes are and have done. Like, we can tell each other these stories, but history also tells us these stories. So what are we going to do? I think it's pathetic that they try to bring us into their hate. They try to recruit us into their worldview. They try to insert their politics into this culture, this artistic culture, because no matter what you think about gay people, there ain't one thing that you have seen that has not been touched by a gay person. Point blank, period. Somebody on this YouTube, somebody who works at YouTube, gay. Somebody who helped invent the internet, gay. Somebody who made this, gay. Me? Straight. But a lot of my experience comes from having gay homies, having trans homies. Like, I'm sorry. What do you want me to? What they don't get an opportunity to be in film for another white dude? Fuck that. Beat Elliot Page. If they can be better than Elliot Page in that scene, to give it to him. But they're not, and they can't be, and they won't be. And so that's the pathetic part, is that, like, you have all these opportunities. You have all these opportunities to welcome people in. A main story about this is welcoming in the stranger, the traveler. That's probably, they don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that. They want to build the walls higher. Keep people out, keep people away. And then they want to recruit people that look like them. Hey, I want you, I want you. Look at what they're doing in their movies. Look at what we're doing in these movies. It's pathetic and it's sad. And I see people online talk about how they're walking out of the movie. First of all, you already paid for it, so what's that going to do? Second of all, I'm interested in hearing new experiences. I'm not looking for a mirror. I'm looking for a window. I want to hear other people's stories. You know what I'm saying? Even though what Chris Nolan is a regular ass white dude, he knows how to tell big blockbuster stories. And I want the difference between his Odyssey and the Coen brothers Odyssey. I want to see those differences. Those are white dudes that made that movie. All right? And look at the difference. We are different. We should just see and embrace that difference and celebrate it, because my two favorite characters, without any fucking woke shit, were Lupita Nyong'o and Elliot Page. And they both killed it, including Agamemnon. All right. Y'all have a good one. Peace.